The DEARHEART Notebooks by Julian Summerhill. For Mrs. Death, who got most of us. Correction. All of us. All of you who have killed anyone or touched anyone who was killed must stay outside the camp for 7 days. Numbers 31:19. You are only as healthy as you feel. Travis Bickle. The water left the river and went up into spray. The water died and ascended there. The haze was made out of the dead water. We were bathed in haze. The whole city. The dead souls in the droplets covered our skins. We held on and rode the comet's tail down where it scraped concrete. Flashes of kneecaps shone through our bloody jeans. "Don't do that," said she. "Don't leave me. Not yet." The stuff we slammed last night was running out of us like river water. We were the river water, and now we were becoming haze. The city rocked and bucked under us. We rode it like the back of a python. Tangerine with the sky, and we forgot if it was morning we were falling through or night we were crashing into. Traffic swooshed around us, leaving long red devil trails. Every streetlight hummed and joined in with the next one and the next one, and we wondered how the people behind those windows and all those towers could possibly go on with what they were doing above this swarm of yellow jackets. We saw Dash way off down the end of the pier, working some trick with his sweet talk and his white hands going like moths around his face. His breath came over us like a river in flowers. The bridge threw down its diamonds on the water, and these trembled in long white phalanges of light upon the river. There came a moaning of some giant ship pulling out from the basin below us, but when we looked down, there was no ship, just the moaning and moaning. It came from inside us, and we hugged ourselves against the pilings and rolled with the river laughing. Along the far shore, the low lights of Jersey spilled onto the tide and crisscrossed the bridge light and the boat light and the rising or melting sunlight. We could not tell. "Don't leave me," said this thing called Cheat. Jesus God. Whatever this is, don't ever leave me. Chapter 1. My name is Spike, and it's good to... I guess I want to talk about how I got here. I'd like to... Wow. I was maybe 10 years old when I first learned how to get myself high enough to leave my own body. That's a big part of this thing right here. I'm coming to learn. I'm coming to learn that's super late, but I'm learning. It's that split, that floating up out of myself, like, I don't know. I had this counselor once in detox. I mean, I was locked up, but also in detox. And this counselor, he called it the nation of dissociation. And he was like, it falls to you, little brother, to straighten all that out, to retrace your own breadcrumbs to that fork in the road where you split from yourself, you know? I mean, this guy was an Olympic champion dope fiend, too. Way worse than me at the time. I picked up a lot from my boy, though, including how to strain blood clots out of perfectly good shot of meth without throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Elephant Man's got 90 days, and he moves through a gauntlet of war whoops to get his umpteenth key tag. It's blood red in a way that all of us lab rats recognize, triggering some kind of dry ground feeling in us. Along with the dry ground comes the wild animals that roam there. After 3 or 4 months, you feel humanish again and vaguely hopeful. But your sense of hope's hot-wired into the same mainframe where thrill and ecstasy lie coiled. We don't know how to do hope and love and the other stuff in the pleasure column without a warning disclaimer. A little fire alarm going off in the amygdala. Elephant Man gets hugged half to death by a big ex-con with HIV named Pruno. Pruno because of his wine-making prowess up in Sing Sing. Instead of drinking, now Pruno holds forth endlessly on how to make lethally strong booze out of just about any rotten leftovers in your kitchen.
How'd you do it?
Yells some newcomer in the back. It makes our mouths water to hear every appalling detail. Sometime I'll get off into why Elephant Man's called that. It's not what you think.
It started as a rumor,
said Boney.
and once you start a rumor, it gets loose in the world, like something spilled out on the sidewalk. Nobody remembers who spilled it. The rumor just spreads. Like that one about the baboon running loose all up in the lanes. A rat's biggest Dobermans waiting on you down in them tunnels.
Boney goes out like every 3 months and runs until the meat falls off his bones like barbecue. He's had the bug since the bug flew down. Never been sick a single day.
Bug can't live inside me, he says. It's way, way too crowded up in here with all kinds of other kinds of shit. So this rumor, right? This rumor flew down and landed on all of us at once. On you and you and you and you.
Boney stabs a finger at us like he's trying to draw blood.
A lot of empty space now where some of us used to stand. The Romans, motherfuckers. The Romans would come back from a battle somewhere, and if they lost that battle or didn't do quite as well as they should have, the generals would go down the line and slaughter every 10th one of them, which is where the word decimate comes from. It was the same with us, only more like 5 out of 10. Do they have a word for that? A fancy, fucked up Roman word? It was half of us, you feel me? Bug cut us in half. Look to your left or look to your right, and there's an empty space where a you used to stand. Some faces look scalded, refried, done up by an undertaker. Others too good very often to belong on the bodies that carry them. Something about the streets and how we pass through them like valedictorians, wearing the glow of maggots in our skins. Skulls pronounce under some of our smiles, waiting to have their day on the outside. Cheekbones to die for, said Cray Cray, right before he did just that. He looked good that day laid out in his box, as good as he ever looked alive. You snuggle up that close to death every day and it makes you burn brighter. Kill off little pieces of yourself and they grow back harder and stronger. Some part of you starts to believe you never will. Die, I mean. Because what you're doing is stepping to death before it steps to you. What did you think this was? I knew this girl from the lanes, said Bruno. Burned out all her veins before she was 18. Had to get creative. Found a way to drill down into some fresh arteries under her pretty little tongue. Motherfucker, it was something to see. Her getting off like that. One spike full of dope and the other full of speed. She had this way of working those plungers just right with both thumbs like a virtuoso. I never did see anything like it. 2 full syringes hanging out of her jib like, what are those things called? A saber-toothed tiger? No. A catfish. She looked just like a human catfish. You see faces in these rooms that came through that. Catfish faces. Clorox faces. Faces remodeled by bored guards at Rikers. Mouths like torn sphincters. 2 flushing toilets where eyes used to be. All the fire gone out of them except one, but one is all you need, just like the one you put to that rock. Alongside these, 1 metal chair over, you see the Queen of England. You see the ivory snow girl with fresh blisters on her lips. You recognize what's-her-name from those slumber party movies. You look at some people in here and you see all 9 of their lives streaming behind them like vapor trails. People back from the dead are on lunch break from some kind of zombie movie. Across the aisle from them, you'd think a children's choir was about to sing. Baby bird faces so fresh and haloed, they couldn't possibly belong to the bodies underneath them they used to sell for 15 minutes at a time. Bodies you could twist and turn like Gumby and make do anything you want. I'm not a believer in anything, she said. Not one little speck of anything. But I prayed to God every night up in there. It's Black Barbie talking, and she stands up to share like they did back in the day. I stared up into that popcorn ceiling, and I Tried to see God's mean face in it. I tried to think what the fuck God must look like. Did God have a sex or a human face? I broiled in that little room on those bed springs, the dope running out of me. I turned over and over and I broiled on a spit like a hot dog at a 7-Eleven. They put metal gates on those windows to keep us bugs safe inside. Out through the cracks I could see the sky weighed down with filthy yellow pillowcases. The power lines snapped and crackled with amazing blue flames and gave off a smell like the electric chair. Some things you just know, and I knew they were laughing at me. God moved behind the hills, wringing his hands like he was cold or bored or undecided. He studied something under his fingernails. Forgot all about me or put me off till later. They kept the hard fluorescents on 24/7 and I prayed under them. I prayed into the ceiling at some water damage I mistook for him. "Give me another go," I said. "Take the lack out of me. Fill the hole. Fill up the hole with you, motherfucker." I begged for a million other things, too. Why not? Mostly forgiveness. Stuff that can never be put right. What I did to my insides, my outsides, other people's. The lights fried me and I was no longer able to hide from myself. The water stain turned into my face. Then one after the other, all the poor, dumb, dead people I carried around. Mary Mary with the spikes still dangling. Bobo and Freebase burned alive in that Pontiac. Enough faces to fill up a high school yearbook. The air in that room was like burnt cotton candy, and I swear I coughed up pink wads of it. I heard screaming and sobbing and the reading of a grocery list inside me. My bare back felt flogged against the ceiling. I looked down. And there I was, being born. Mac's Headroom is going on about the Pharisees and their woes. We all know Max is high as fuck, but we never know on what. We just let him go on being Max. He's earned some kind of soapbox in here. His head was crushed in by some Jibaros up on Grand Concourse last year. It's kind of square now, like you could set a can of Pepsi on it. And one time one of us did.
"Woe to you hypocrites! For you cross sea and land to make a single convert, and you make the new convert twice as much a child of hell as yourselves,"
says Max. Everybody's seriously scared of him. Guys with manslaughter on their resume. Guys who did things in the war.
"Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, which on the outside look beautiful, but inside they are full of the bones of the dead and all kinds of filth.
Max used to be some kind of Wall Street somebody. But overnight, through the special emissary of methamphetamine, he discovered secret portals with his name on them hidden all over the city. Meth told him to live out of a locker at Port Authority. He burned his fingerprints off on a hot plate and incinerated all his clothes because meth said to. The Bronx was secretly infested with lizard people who looked almost normal except for one hidden trait that only Max could divine. Meth sent him up there to clean house. The cops locked him up about 17 times.
As Jesus came out of the temple and was going away, his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. Then he asked them, "You see all those, do you not? Truly, I tell you, not one stone will be left here upon another. All will be thrown down."
It was a toothbrush, said Daisy. I was maybe 3 weeks clean, and the toothbrush was facing the wrong way in the little ivory holder. Everything came apart after that. Everything in my little world. I came to about 5 days later in lockup. They took the baby away. They said it was covered in a little suit of bruises. I went upstate for a long time then. They got better drugs in there than you ever dreamed about out here. Believe. But it started with that toothbrush. I was out on the concourse, said Boney, chasing down some coke to slam with this dope I had just caught from these very mannerly Dominicans. I mean, it was unseemly how friendly these guys were. It got my blood up, and I scooted away from them like I was pushing off from the side of a pool. One of them called after me. "You need some rock to go with that." He pulled a Ziploc baggie out of the kangaroo pouch of his hoodie and fished around inside and came up with a little see-through capsule with a bright red top on it, which he held up like a diamond between his thumb and forefinger. And there were 2 or 3 little yellow crumbs inside that looked like rotten toenail clippings. And the streetlight drained all the color out of our faces and made us all look dead. Like we were dead people standing there who didn't know we were dead yet. And that was it. That was the first time I ever saw it. It went through the neighborhood that year like a pox, like a black plague, only it was a white plague. White as the foam around our mouths. I worked the lanes, said Pipsqueak. I worked Malcolm X Boulevard and MLK all the way down to Riverfront. Twice they had to carry me out of there. You don't go in those projects without. He cut me right here. Pipsqueak opens a button or two on her blouse. It has these wide little girl collars. The kind of thing you'd wear to church, and we are in church, yes we are. Something about the way your voice rings out in this basement makes you want to handle snakes. Makes you want to spill on yourself.
He cut me from here to where I cannot say. They told me in the ambulance it was a wonder how it missed everything. And I said, missed everything, bitch. Take your head out your ass and look at my 2 tits, would you?
Pipsqueak has a lot of frequent flyer miles on her. You could go around the world and back on them, and she's not even 30. She looks exactly like Billie Holiday did the last year of her life. Billie Holiday was about 44 when she died, but she looked 60. She once beat the piss out of 2 sailors who tried to. Billie once said, I can always tell when I come off dope because I stop watching television. This has become part of the lore, this story, and the story within it. An Indian guy in the back stands up and announces he's got such and such days clean. There's a little anemic welter of applause. Welter also means to lie steeped in blood with no help or care. This guy's known for going in and out and in again. He likes the welter. I keep thinking how strange this is. The way we're one thing out there and another thing through the looking glass. You see people you terrorized with a box cutter handing you lukewarm coffee with a little napkin around it as if the styrofoam cup was the Madonna and Child. You see cops holding hands in a prayer circle with the same hands they put zip ties on. Bear hugging the same ribs they broke. All laughing too loud together like people roasting marshmallows around a gallows. One time in a Midnight Miracles meeting, a girl from the lanes died on a pew in the back. They haul the pews downstairs sometimes to scrape the gum off with box cutters. If you pull community service instead of jail, I might see you down on your knees. The girl had come in fresh from some detox. She stood up in that same meeting and declared herself sick and tired of being sick and tired. And now she was joyous and happy and free, as if she was reading it off a teleprompter. There were regulation whoops and hollers, and phone numbers went flying around like cherry blossoms. The first thing you learn in here is that you think you know, but you don't really know. And you never did. And not knowing, said the prophet Daffy Duck, is all there is. So I walk in last night and Blank is dead. I mean, she's not breathing, said Zero. Zero looks just like his name, like a fading smoke ring hanging in the air. And this voice inside me says, I'd better do something, you know? It's like she's relaxed into herself. All the tension is gone from her face, and the color, too, is leaving now. Olive into spiral stair steps of blue. If these are stairs, they're leading down from darkness to light. Funny how the light is in the basement of ourselves. The debasement of ourselves. Cerulean down to Carolina blue, then electric into robin's egg, to baby blue, then powder, giving way at last to Alice, as we all must give way one day to Alice. Alice Blue. I once knew a whore named Alice, who wore on her ass a large callus. Blank is sliding into a state called primary flaccidity. Chilly to the touch now. Her pupils are opening into full moons. Her mouth is catching flies. Her jaw and hips are becoming what a coroner might call pronounced. The stair steps are winding down to the color of Marlboro ash. Milk skim. Did you know the human heart beats more than 2.5 billion times during the average lifespan? Pumping about 6 quarts of blood throughout the various precincts and sad municipalities of the body. And when the heart stops, whatever pinkish tone there was begins to pale. Pallor mortis. The absence of color is not white, it's the vacancy blood leaves behind. She has that sunset look. Pallor mortis, my friends. I'd better do something. But what? I'm so exalted from the stuff we just slammed. I feel like conquering a country and driving my enemies before me, but with great tenderness or whatever. I'm standing there and I feel so very complete, you know? So pure and irreducible. So indelible. So unerasable. Like God would want to feel if God was in that room with us. This is what we signed up for. We have an arrangement, me and Blank. We've made a deal to act as each other's facilitators in this thing. Who am I to fuck with the program? Who am I? But I'm thinking I'd better do something. I like me a good 1cc blue tip syringe, says this newcomer named Felony. It is the perfect gauge to lay right in my vein, so I don't even have to hold it there, you know? Felony is one of these white girls from Money who puts most of it in her arm. She comes off like a black Edie Sedgwick. There's a fresh hospital bracelet from Gracie's Square Detox dangling off her bony little wrist. We let her go on sharing even though we shouldn't. It's like listening to some kind of tutorial. So once a vein gets all toughed up, you'll hear this satisfying little click, you know, when the spike locks in through the scar tissue. Click, click. And this sound becomes a trigger that makes the dog in you salivate. You feel me? And the spike nestles there like a praying mantis, all secure and ready for the endless rounds of boots you must apply to the plunger. Felony begins pantomiming this for us just in case we're not getting it. Now, if you have been a good little Susie homemaker, you've remembered to grease that shaft with Vaseline to ease the in and out motion, because booting Injecting and withdrawing the same blood over and over again is how you roller coaster through that tunnel of love again and again and again, thus prolonging yours or your partner's pleasure way, way after the dope has melted into your bodies. You need to believe there is still something there after the 10th or 12th boot. Because belief is everything. Ask Kierkegaard, motherfuckers. When I was 12-ish in a past life, goes Spike, a bunch of us ate this real strong bootleg acid out by the reservoir. Things got very insecty for a while. Jungly. You could see where we all had these secret antennae transmitting and receiving stuff. You could look right down through all our pretend layers and view what was gurgling inside. We had a certain amount of this gluey stuff filling us like beetles, and this was our life paste. That's all there was. That's all we were or were ever going to be. It was funny as fuck, really. Legendary, though. You couldn't do anything about it because it was already decided you had just your little share of goo and no more. You could see through where some of us were full up with it and others were more or less running out because we feed on each other's insides. It's like that basic and brutal, I guess. There's a certain kind of beetle that eats other beetles, and we saw that we were just like that. I don't know. Things became beautiful and simple. You could pack up all your stupid troubles after that. It was all arranged. And there was this freckled girl there we called Peppermint Patty. Just tragically smeared with freckles. And we could telepath that she was almost empty. We all took turns on her right on the edge of that reservoir with moons and stars flipped upside down below us and cast up into our bug faces. She had this look the whole time, like you see only on people in the Bible when the searchlights of heaven spill all over them. It was like they say love is. We were draining her, but also filling her. She was the food and the center of the universe and the star of fucking Bethlehem, you know? I had this, I guess you'd call it insight, as I was on top of Peppermint Patty, staring down into the black water. It sounds lame to put it into words, but I could perceive that it was, let's see, sublime or godlike to both give up your goo and suction the goo out of other beetles. That we were all just shells, husks, vessels. And the life goo was endlessly regenerating and transferable, so nobody ever really dies. Holy fuck, right? No worries then to speak of. We come and we go like the stuff that floats off dandelions. We hitchhike along on the wind for a while and then fall to the ground and become new dandelions. I don't know. Is this what they call rationalizing? Really strong acid is like that, you know? You look for symmetry where there is none. It makes you think you are thinking until it all melts away. I've been like a broken mirror ever since the reservoir. A mirror you break and then glue back together with all the shards reflecting crazily. Kind of cracked, right? Maybe a year after the reservoir, Peppermint Patty got this new kind of leukemia, and we sort of took a secret telepathic interest in watching her curl up and waste away like roadkill. Her eyes got progressively saintly. But that's not the point. It's like she knew we knew she'd run out of the so-called goo a long time ago. Some people walk around dead for a long time before they surrender to it. But death's not like anything according to us, because you're not there for it. You've already moved on, which is why they call it passing away. Away somewhere, right? At least that's the story we told ourselves. But we could be wrong. We could be very wrong. So the meth's leaking out of my marrow, sort of, said Zero. My memory's a bad slideshow I'm forced to watch with lots of slides missing from the carousel. Let me cut a montage together from these last couple days. I stole some surgeon's green drawstrings and bailed against medical advice from Gracie Square, still wearing my backless, flame-proof hospital gown, only I like to wear it backwards, meaning frontless, I guess. After 3 weeks in Gracie, I felt leveled out enough to take charge of my own medication, thank you very much. I remember a rainy downtown taxi, an ATM, dope lowered down in a bucket on Avenue C, coke shoved up through a grating on 11th Street, then home to the nest. There's something about the pose last night and the usual trouble, me statued there in some kind of dopamine fugue, people I know or don't know squeezing by me to get in and out of the bathroom, someone draping strips of blackened Reynolds wrap over my Frankensteined arms like it's tinsel and I'm their fucking Christmas tree. This happens after about the 15th or so shot, and I freeze up. Blank's pet name for this is the pose, which used to be funny, but now nobody's laughing. I remember Rockets, that walrus junkie fuck, wedged up against the bathroom door, and Bad Linda's lethal breath in my face. So what does that tell you? The stories blow out of us like fumes held down too long in our lungs. Geechee got coming out of the lanes. Hollow Point grazed his skull. It looked all right. Then got infected. His head swelled up like a water balloon. Geechee developed some septic something, died in Cabrini ICU, howling like a wolf. Marie Consuelo pushed out a window, 14th floor, 3rd tower, rear, also the lanes. Feedback shot with a .380. Died instantly, no witnesses. Everybody saw it.
Pork rind and his girlfriend, shot in the stairwell over some Monopoly money. Heard she's in a wheelchair now. Jose 1 and Jose 2 shot dead with a 9 because they share the same name and look alike. Or looked alike. A waitress named Colleen Hofstetter died standing up laughing at the counter from a stray 22 long that passed like a mythical arrow through her name tag and her uniform and then the left ventricle of her astonished heart. It made a little bloodless hole going in the size of a number 2 pencil, then blew out a large chunk of her back and took away part of her shoulder blade. The bullet was meant for a lookout named Cray Cray, who had a little sideline selling soap shavings in $10 and $20 vials, especially the Lemon Dove, which looks a whole lot like the Rock. A kid with a giant purple mohawk named Dodo Bird, real name Francis Gillespie, who looked wrong, is what they said. He looked wrong. So some scab from 8th Street put a hole in his throat with a Phillips screwdriver. He bled out begging for a Newport, corner of Avenue D. 3 kids from PS something something. Shot the same week with the same .40 cal. Found later in the gym bag of the 4th kid they balled with. The 4th kid said it was over some girl. 2 undercover cops in 2 days making separate buys of a thing called Stairway to Heaven on 2 separate stairways of the same building. Both shot in the face with the same .380. Also the lanes. A dealer named Porcupine found glued to the carpet 3 days later, blunt force trauma to the head. No survivors. Everybody loved Porcupine. I think about all the sunsets I missed, said Pruno. 10,914. More times than the sun set over the entire Southeast Asian conflict. Conflict. The fuck they know about it. You take away those sunsets and I'm a toddler drooling across this floor. That's how much of me is left over. 2 or 3 years with my thumb in my mouth, learning how to walk upright without drugs in my body. Men pay for, says Pipsqueak. A trick from some outer borough come in on the weekends and begs to be my toilet. It kills my whole night. I have to time it just right to cook something tasty to leave in his mouth. $1,000 plus tip for a quick trip to the ladies' room. Meanwhile, my dick twice as big as his. I seen him on Live at 5, though. He's some kind of something. The human heart is colossal in its folly. It says that someplace. It says I'm the Flash. That's what I am, said this guy named Flash. The Human Torch. We were cooking down some rock in the stove, you know, the big, round, beautiful, blue-eyed flame on that stove caught my sleeve, and it climbed up my shoulders and all into my hair, and I began to laugh. My skin right here, my skin fell off my face in bacon strips, and
I laughed until I had no more mouth to laugh with. You had to be there. It was biblical. What happens is you get old on each other, and there's no more love. No more love there, said Gigi. I glanced up and I was 30. She was something like 29. We looked, I don't know, way off into our 50s. The things we did to ourselves and each other. We were supposed to be safe in the ground by now, or scattered like dandelions. Standing there with the sun spilling in, she looked embalmed. I looked like, I don't know, a thing that crawled from a swamp. We ran away is what we did. Ran away from the truth of each other. But what I want to know is, can you breathe? My sponsor asked me. I was going on and on about all the things I pissed down the drain. My kids. The mother of my kids. 17 teeth gone from my head. A place to sleep outside the shelter. The use of my left arm up to the elbow. But is it affecting your breathing? He asked me again. He was really starting to piss me the fuck off. Because if you can still breathe in and breathe out, then it's not a problem, grasshopper. I looked down at the dead hand in my lap, flapping around like a fish. And I thought about it. I grab a wide, flat broom and a dustpan with jaws you can open and close with your foot. The broom is the kind you'd rather pull than push. I start over in one far corner and sort of mow long ways across the linoleum from one end of this basement to the other until I cover every bare spot. I count the squares on the gigantic checkerboard floor and pretend, why not? I'm getting kinged at each end. I must walk about 1.5 miles and I kick up the smell of Lysol as I go. Along the way, I see things. Steamrollered cigarette butts, mostly Newports, Camels, Pall-Malls, and Cools. Many multitudes of these, enough to supply every kid at every landfill in Brazil. I see the ghostly footprints of Keds and Converse, the stencils they leave here like rib cages. Flies I see, clusters of the dead, huddled as if herded here and executed. Lone ones smeared, flattened, swiped and smithereened, sprayed down in midair by raid or upended perfectly on their blue backs, dead of natural causes. Every leg and bristle intact as if they were tiny stuffed animals waiting to be played with. Everything goes into the jaws. I see phone numbers scrawled on matchbooks, on summonses and bazooka funnies, on bisected just for today broadsides and post-its and front leaves or back leaves torn right from the big book. Half the numbers are disconnected. The people who wrote them deceased or in Rikers or back out there somewhere cruising like hammerhead sharks. More food for the jaws. Dust devils made out of chemoed hair, out of threads and frays from Gucci to Goodwill. Dust in general over all that stands still. Composed, they say, mostly of shed human skin. I set up tables for coffee that will soon taste like the runoff from Chernobyl. And cookies, too. There will be cookies involved. Mounds of cookies with smiley faces done up with every M&M in the rainbow. And tables for books, mostly sold out or missing or unread or only read, committed to memory like scripture passed down through sewer pipes in a jailhouse. A book called Hope is an Action and Love is a Verb. One called We Proud Few, We Do Recover. And one called, for lack of a better name, just plain Big. Dozens of pamphlets on every kind of human woe. Things we must admit or turn loose of or lay down without opening on the doorsteps of some god. I snap on the back fluorescents only. The front ones give off a low, ghastly hum. We like ambient light around here and the forgiveness it offers up to each other's faces. What we see here and hear here stays here. But nothing stays anywhere. It all sails up like ash from a crematorium and flies off across 7 sad oceans and lands right back downstairs here again. The same 17 sentences from interchangeable mouths, remixed and reordered like the I Ching or refrigerator magnets. I roll out a double rack of metal folding chairs. I cradle 2 at a time under each arm and fan these out with a lot of good noise into the shape of a little Greek amphitheater, where mothers will soon be implicated with stepsons and daughters of Zeus will break probation or go back to slinging or whoring or maybe none of these. Mostly we'll just hover here in this heavy, weightless human cloud we make together, where people get burned or reincarnated. And you'd swear there was some kind of giant, trembling hand behind it all.